In 2004, the gaming landscape was at a pivotal juncture. With the emergence of more powerful hardware, both on consoles and PCs, developers were pushing the boundaries of what was possible in video game design. It was in this context that Far Cry made its debut. Setting new standards in multiple dimensions, graphics, level design, and AI behavior. Developed by Crytek and published by Ubisoft, Far Cry didn't merely aim to be another entry in the increasingly crowded first-person shooter market. It aspired to be a watershed moment for the genre. You take on the role of Jack Carver, a former US Special Forces operative, in a narrative that combines military action with a survivalist theme. Set in a visually stunning tropical archipelago, the game shifted the paradigms of environmental interaction and open-world exploration in first-person shooters. Where many games of the era were content with linear levels and scripted enemy behavior, Far Cry offered the sprawling landscapes and AI that could adapt to player strategies. The game's technical achievements were matched by its ambition to offer players multiple avenues for engagement. Whether you chose stealth or direct combat, the game accommodated a variety of tactical approaches, making each playthrough a unique experience. It's essential to recognize Far Cry not just as a game that was groundbreaking at the time, but also as a foundational title that would inform the game design and mechanics of numerous shooters that followed. Its legacy is not confined to its immediate successors, but extends to the broader evolution of open-world games and the FPS genre at large. In 2004, the degree of realism and detail Far Cry offered was groundbreaking. The CryEngine's ability to render complex geometries and intricate textures allowed for an unprecedented level of detail in both natural and man-made environments. From the individual leaves on trees to the subtle patterns on rocks and the intricate designs of facilities, every element was crafted to contribute to an immersive experience. This level of detail was not merely cosmetic, it had functional implications as well. The game's realistic portrayal of environments made the tactical decisions about cover and movement more engaging. Another standout feature was the game's dynamic environments. Far Cry was one of the first games to introduce a system where environmental factors like wind and water currents could affect gameplay. Leaves would rustle, alerting you or your enemies to movement. Water bodies were not just static elements but had dynamic properties like waves and reflections that were astonishing for the time. These environmental elements interacted with the lighting to create a dynamic visual experience that was not just pleasing to the eye, but also contributed to gameplay mechanics. The game's draw distance was particularly noteworthy. In most games of that era, long-range visibility was often compromised to save computational power. However, Far Cry broke this norm by allowing players to see for miles, offering both a sense of scale and strategic depth. This feature was not just a technological showcase, it significantly affected gameplay, especially when it came to planning assaults or sniping from a distance. The world felt expansive, and the long draw distances made it possible to strategize in a way that few other games allowed at the time. The particle effects in Far Cry were another area where the game pushed boundaries. Explosions were not just simple sprite overlays but involved complex particle simulations. Smoke would billow realistically, and these effects added an extra layer of immersion and realism, making combat scenarios much more intense and visually captivating. While some elements may appear dated when compared to modern standards, it's crucial to recognize that Far Cry was a product of its time, and an exceptionally advanced one at that. Even today, the game's visual accomplishments hold up relatively well, a testament to the expertise and ambition of the developers. The visual accomplishments of Far Cry were not just a leap but a paradigm shift in what was considered achievable in video game graphics in 2004. The game set a new benchmark, raising both player expectations and industry standards for years to come. One of the most striking aspects of Far Cry's sound design was its use of ambient sounds to create a living, breathing world. From the rustle of trees and the chirping of tropical birds to the distant roars of waterfalls and the gentle lap of waves on the shore, the ambient sound palette was rich and varied. These sounds weren't just atmospheric but functional, often serving as audio cues for players to detect approaching enemies or other points of interest. The game employed a dynamic audio system that reached the player behavior and environmental factors. If you were sprinting through the jungle, the noise generated could alert nearby enemies, forcing you to think carefully about your movements. This dynamic interaction extended to various elements in the game world, such as creaking of wooden floors or the sound of machinery in industrial areas, each serving as potential indicators of danger or opportunities for tactical advantages. The sound design also extended to the game's weaponry and explosive effects. Each gun had a distinct auditory profile, from the sharp crack of a sniper rifle to the rapid-fire burst of an assault rifle. These sounds were not only satisfying to hear, but also offered tactical information. For example, different enemy types often carried specific weapons, and their unique firing sounds could serve as an oral clue to their presence and position. While the game's voice acting may not have been its strongest suit, it served its purpose in conveying the narrative and providing context for the player's actions.
No, please, you don't understand. They sent me. They're always watching. You can't change this. You can't change the future.
Enemies would shout commands, react to player movements, and even show signs of fear or aggression based on the situation,
You want more of that?
adding another layer of immersion and tactical depth. The musical score in Far Cry was understated but effective, kicking in at key moments to heighten tension or signal a change in gameplay pace. The music was designed to complement the action without overwhelming it, allowing the game's ambient sounds and gameplay mechanics to take center stage. The game utilized advanced audio localization techniques to create a 3D sound environment. This was particularly useful in dense jungle settings, where visibility might be limited. The directionality of sound could help players pinpoint the location of enemies, adding an extra layer of tactical complexity to the gameplay. Sound design in Far Cry was an integral part of the game's overall experience, contributing both to immersion and gameplay mechanics. The level of detail and attention paid to the game's audio elements was groundbreaking for its time and set a high bar for future titles in the genre. In 2004, the term open world was mostly associated with role-playing games and a few action-adventure titles. The concept was relatively unexplored in the realm of first-person shooters. Far Cry was among the pioneers in integrating open-world elements into the FPS genre, offering a level of freedom and choice that was virtually unprecedented at the time. The open-world nature of Far Cry was evident in its level design. Unlike many contemporary titles, which relied on linear pathways and closed environments, Far Cry presented expansive landscapes, intricate cave systems, and multiple indoor and outdoor settings. These are not just vast but also richly detailed, encouraging exploration and tactical planning. The architecture of each area, whether natural or man-made, provided multiple approaches to objectives, from vantage points for sniping to secluded paths for stealth. This open world design added a layer of strategic depth that set Far Cry apart from more linear shooters. Players could not only choose their path but also their approach, whether you wanted to go in guns blazing or take a more subtle, stealthy approach. The game accommodated a range of strategies. This level of freedom led to a high replay value, as each playthrough could be a unique experience based on the choices made by the player. Adding to the open world feel was the game's dynamic objective system. While the overarching goals of each mission were predefined, how you achieved them was largely up to you. This system lent an organic feel to the game, making the world seem less like a series of scripted events and more like a living, breathing environment. The inclusion of vehicles like jeeps, boats, and hang gliders added another layer of complexity to the game's open world exploration. These were not mere novelties but integral parts of gameplay that expanded tactical approaches. For example, a boat could provide a fast but potentially dangerous route through open water, while a hang glider could offer a stealthy approach to an enemy stronghold, but at the risk of limited maneuverability. The game's environments were not just static backdrops but interactive elements that played a role in gameplay. Certain structures could be destroyed to create new paths or to eliminate cover for enemies. The interaction with environmental elements like foliage, water, and wildlife added an additional layer of immersion and tactical complexity. The open-world elements of Far Cry represented a paradigm shift in first-person shooters, integrating the depth and freedom typically associated with other genres. This open-world design wasn't just a feature, but a core philosophy that permeated every aspect of the game, from level design and objectives to player choice and tactical depth. In an era where enemy AI in first-person shooters often amounted to basic pathfinding and rudimentary tactics, Far Cry set a new standard for intelligent and responsive adversaries. The AI was not just a feature but a cornerstone of the game's design philosophy, affecting everything from combat dynamics to player strategy. The most striking aspect of the AI in Far Cry was its adaptive behavior. Enemies didn't just stand in predetermined spots waiting for the player to trigger their actions. Instead, they exhibited a range of responses based on a player's actions and their environmental context. If you were spotted, enemies would not just open fire but could take cover, attempt to flank you, or even retreat in order to wait for backup. This dynamic behavior turned each encounter into a unique tactical challenge. Another innovative feature was the AI's ability to coordinate actions and communicate with each other. Enemies could signal for help, alert others to your presence, or even work in teams to outmaneuver you. This level of coordination made it difficult to predict enemy actions and forced players to continually adapt their strategies. The AI's interaction with the environment was another standout feature. Whether in the dense jungle or a multi-level facility, enemies used their surroundings effectively. They would take cover behind objects, use elevation to their advantage, and even interact with the environmental elements like activating alarms or locking doors to corner the player. This environmental awareness made each combat scenario feel organic and engaging. Far Cry also offered various difficulty levels that impacted not just the enemy's resilience but their intelligence as well. On higher difficulty settings, the AI became more strategic, employing advanced flanking maneuvers, more accurate shooting, and better use of cover. This scaling allowed players of all skill levels to find a challenging yet rewarding experience. While groundbreaking, the AI in Far Cry was not without its limitations. Occasionally, enemies would exhibit erratic behavior or would get stuck in the environment, but these instances were rare and did little to diminish the overall experience. The game's AI set a precedent that influenced not just subsequent titles in the Far Cry series, but also the broader genre of first-person shooters. The AI in Far Cry was a groundbreaking achievement, providing a level of challenge and immersion that was rare for its time. It fundamentally changed what players expected from enemy behavior in video games, setting a high bar for future developments in AI design. One of the standout gameplay elements of Far Cry was its diverse weapon arsenal, which ranged from handguns and shotguns to sniper rifles and rocket launchers. Each weapon had its own set of characteristics, including accuracy, range, recoil, and rate of fire. This level of detail added a layer of realism and strategic depth, as players had to carefully choose their armaments based on the situation. The game allowed for different tactical loadouts, which meant that players had to think critically about their equipment choices. You couldn't carry an unlimited arsenal, you had to make trade-offs. For example, carrying a sniper rifle for long-range engagement might mean sacrificing a powerful close-range weapon. This limitation added another layer of tactical depth, forcing players to adapt their strategies based on their chosen loadouts. Ammunition was another factor that players had to manage. Unlike many contemporary titles where ammo is abundant, Far Cry made resource management a key aspect of gameplay. Players had to make every shot count and often have to scavenge for supplies, adding a survival element to the game. Weapons weren't just tools for eliminating enemies, they also interacted with the game's environment. For instance, some structures could be destroyed to create new paths or eliminate enemy cover. Firing a rocket at a wooden structure could bring it crashing down, while shooting an explosive barrel could set off a chain reaction that cleared that area of foes. The game expanded its arsenal beyond held-hand weapons by incorporating various vehicles into gameplay. Players could take control of jeeps equipped with mounted guns, patrol boats with onboard artillery, and even hang gliders for aerial reconnaissance. These vehicles were not just for traversing the expansive maps, but served as extended gameplay elements for your arsenal, providing new tactical options in combat scenarios. In terms of abilities, Far Cry took a more grounded approach compared to other first-person shooters that equipped players with special powers or gadgets. You played as Jack Carver, a highly skilled but essentially human character. There were no regenerating health bars or special abilities. Instead, players had to rely on health packs and tactical ingenuity. This limitation made each encounter more tense and forced players to think more strategically about their actions. The arsenal and abilities in Far Cry were designed to offer a balanced and engaging gameplay experience. The variety of weapons and tactical options, combined with limitations on carrying capacity and abilities, created a challenging environment that rewarded strategic thinking and adaptability. While the story of Far Cry may not be its most lauded feature, it serves an essential function by providing context to the gameplay. As Jack Carver, you find yourself navigating a perilous tropical archipelago teeming with ruthless mercenaries, inhumane experiments, and more sinister threats. The narrative not only guides the player through diverse environments, but also justifies the escalating challenges and enemy types encountered. The narrative also introduces themes of isolation, survival, and moral ambiguity. As Carver explores the island, the story gradually unveils more complex layers, including the ethics of scientific experimentation and the consequences of unchecked militarism. While not deeply explored, these themes add a level of depth and intrigue that goes beyond the simple shoot-to-survive premise. One aspect where the narrative particularly succeeds is in its pacing. While the story itself may not be intricate, the way it unfolds alongside the gameplay is well executed. Key plot points often coincide with major gameplay shifts, such as new environments or enemy types, creating a seamless integration of narrative and mechanics. This pacing keeps the player engaged and adds emotional stakes to the gameplay challenges. The game uses cutscenes and voice acting to deliver its narrative, which, for its time, was an ambitious undertaking. While the quality of the voice acting and dialogue may appear dated by modern standards, they were sufficiently engaging in the context of 2004.
Doyle, my armor's turning green.
Sounds like you caught the bug.
I thought I took the antidote.
The antidote should have been able to handle it, but a containment leak could have saturated the air with mutagen.
Characters like Doyle, your mysterious guide through the radio, add layers of mystery and urgency to the unfolding events. Far Cry also employs environmental storytelling to enrich its narrative. The game world is littered with details, like abandoned camps, derelict structures, and scattered documents, that hint at larger events and offer deeper context to the main storyline. While not as explicit as the cutscenes or dialogue, these environmental cues serve to immerse the player further into the game's world. The game starts off with us on a boat somewhere here. We play as Jack Carver, a man who's a literal red shirt, but only in fashion style. About a minute of epilepsy-inducing cutscenes later, we wake up in some damp cave with our first obstacle not much later on. the ridiculous starting sensitivity. I swiftly turn it down and learn how to jump, crouch, and crawl. I test the strength of my ankles before then experiencing the crispiest voice acting known to man.
Keep an eye out for some punk in a red Hawaiian shirt. If you see him, call me at once. Am I understood?
Yes, sir!
The absolute pinnacle of gaming. I then come across a radio and get acquainted with a man named Doyle, another scientist on the island, but one of the friendly variety. He'll be the voice in our ear for the majority of the game, telling us where to go and what to do. I then pick up the first firearm of the game, the trusty Desert Eagle, swiftly dealing with the first group of enemies before making it to the next objective, where I met with the patented bullshit AI, straight up being shot through walls. I steal a truck and go on a swift drive before being blown up by a boat. Oh yeah, someone at Crytek decided they wanted to do a little trolling, so they added all sorts of goofy stuff to the game. Here's another example. Get on this boat. However, there's almost no cover to hide behind while approaching it. Also, there's a bunch of enemies with eagle eyes, and they're armed with heat-seeking rocket launchers. Very fun. After sneaking my way onto the carrier, I'm instructed to make my way to the top in order to steal a boat. Carrier is an extremely fun level, taking place primarily inside of the cramped corridors of a World War II era boat, having to constantly be on edge as enemies can pop out of any given door or corner. It's also the level in which we're able to get our hands on the P90. Naturally, it's just as fun as in any other game. We make it topside and shoot loose the chains on a boat before driving off into the sunset. The third level, Fort, sees us fight our way across a beach and up a small mountain towards a fort. Huh, who saw that coming? This is one of the first levels which truly shows off the capacity of a game this old, as you're allowed to explore this absolutely massive open island. While there is a single objective to complete, you can take as long as you want to get there, exploring as much or as little of your surroundings as you want. Once I make my way up to the fort, we have to wait for Doyle to unlock a door, all the while being assaulted by mortar fire by a boat from down below. Here I get my ass handed to me once again by the absolute pinpoint precision of enemy rockets, being able to snipe me from literal kilometers away. So I deal with the boats, deal with the chopper, and sneak my way into the compound, where we lay eyes on the main big bad of the game for the first time. This is Dr. George Wilhelm Krieger, a renowned Austrian-American scientist who runs the show on the island, as well as the many inhumane experience found on them. The fourth level, Pier, sees us fight our way through the island in order to meet with Doyle at a nearby pier. We're supposed to take this hang glider at the start in order to get used to the air traversal in the game, but instead I just slip off this nearby cliff. Doyle also instructs us to cause a little distraction, which I do by blowing up a nearby armory. So, I go to the pier, kill everyone there, mess around with some of the physics-based objects, and then meet Doyle. The fifth level, Research, is a rather short one. It starts off with you on a beach, but quickly turns into a cramped one where you're making your way through narrow caves and corridors. We then find a keycard and take an elevator. That's it, that's the whole level. Luckily, it's followed up by level 6, Treehouse. This is the first absolutely goated level. In it, we must navigate our way through a research facility suspended around some trees, much like a treehouse. This is also the first level in which you take on the Trijons head-on, or at least a single variant of them. The Primate Trijon, more specifically. These are the most common one and they'll appear in almost any level after this one. As the name implies, these guys are mutated from apes, chimpanzees, and gorillas specifically. This level ends once we collect a spectrum worth of color-coded keycards, upon which we reach level 7, Bunker. We're here to find Valerie, but we are almost instantly told by Doyle that she is long gone, not much after we come across a new Trijon variant. While this one may be deceased, it's instantly clear that it will be a challenge to deal with due to its sheer size alone. These are fittingly named Fat Boys. These are mutated from humans and are a lot stronger than the primates, but are unable to leap great distances. These guys pack quite a punch and can take a lot of damage. A little later, we reach a room with holding pens for the Trijons, which we can open up to let the Trijons absolutely destroy the mercenaries below us. This level ends when we make our way outside of the bunker and to the helipad, engaging in a through-action sequence where we take out the chopper. We then swim to a nearby beach where Valerie reveals to us that she is a CIA agent who hired Jack due to his special forces background. She's here to find an undercover agent that they lost contact with some weeks ago, but is revealed to be Doyle as he calls us on the radio. He informs us to release some untrained Trijon in the nearby cages, so that the mercs are more occupied with them than with us. Level 8 is Steam, a short but open-ended level in which we collect some night vision goggles, kill some guys, steal a thing, and enter the Steam regulator. Swiftly moving on to the 9th level, Regulator. This level's main gimmick is Steam, which is quite hot, capable of game-ending you in only a few frames. This level also uses the engine for some interesting but simple puzzles, being able to move boxes around to collect more armor and ammo. After we destroy the regulator, there's a Trijon outbreak, which means the game is gonna get a lot harder. The 10th level is Control. which only has a single objective: leave the building. The lethal scene makes a return from the previous level, and this is where you'll start coming across a larger amount of Trigens, as well as your first live fat boys, who are quite the challenge. Rebellion is the 11th level, with the title referring to the Trigens rebelling to their masters. This is the first level where shit really hits the fan, with you being able to come across ongoing battles between the mercenaries and Trigens, really making the world feel more alive than it has before. After a bit we make it to the archives, which is where Valerie was last headed. This level also really amps up the difficulty, with bullets and rockets flying all around you, which can easily cut you down where you stand if you're not paying attention. We also come across a third Trigen variant here, the Squeaker. These have the lowest health of the bunch, but are able to leap the furthest due to their slender build, even further than the primates. After using about 4 humpies worth of health, we make it to the 12th level, Archive. Upon entering it, Doyle tells us that Valerie should be somewhere inside of the facility. Not much later, we're ambushed by an invisible Trigen, literally named Stealth Trigen. Very creative guys, gold star. They don't pose much of a threat due to the fact that you could find the goggles that reveal them instantly like 4 levels back. They have the lowest amount of health of the bunch and will constantly harass you with a silenced MP5. This level is the longest by far. First starting off with making your way through this entire underground facility, complete with night vision oriented combat arenas, before then making it outside to this large arena where you have to deal with tons of dudes wielding snipers and rocket launchers. It's also the only level that made me literally rage quit the game after getting absolutely domed for the umpteenth time. Level 13, Cooler, is essentially just more of the same, except now we're deeper underground and there's a lot more water involved. After finding Val, Doyle tells us that he's unable to make contact with the CIA because of Krieger's radio transmitters, which means we're gonna have to go blow them up next, naturally. Level 14, Bones, has us drive to a cluster of islands where we are once again free to do whatever we want. We collect a stack of explosives and make our way around the various islands, going into the command rooms underneath each of the towers and blowing up the Kingdom Come. The irony of us destroying the towers we will be climbing ad nauseum in only a few games is hilarious, by the way. After destroying the 3 towers, Doyle informs us that there's actually a super secret 4th tower located on a nearby boat. So we go there and blow it up too, but after doing so we get ambushed by Crow. He's the guy in the hat from the first mission, if you can remember. This is our first proper boss fight of the game, and it's one hell of a doozy, as it comes at you with everything he's got from the get-go, namely a chopper with about 10 times the health of any other chopper in the game, and a light machine gun with a seemingly infinite stockpile of ammo. There's very little cover on the boat to hide from the never-ending hell of gunfire. Oh, and have I mentioned it's literally sinking from the moment Crow spawns in? Meaning that you've got both the clock and your own health bar to keep track of. Overall, this makes for a pretty fun and challenging boss fight. I died a good few times, but I never felt like I was getting fucked over. You can also completely cheese the fight by disregarding the boat entirely, and swimming to shore as soon as you plant the bomb, instead of running to the opposite side of the ship. After dealing enough damage to the chopper, you make Crow back off, and you get teleported to the next mission. This is also the only time the game ever does this, and it feels so strange. Anyway, level 15, Catacombs, sees us once again trace the steps of Val, as she's presumably in trouble again. Why Jack hasn't just tied her to any given chair or tree, I really don't know. This level starts off with us crossing this small valley before we descend down into the titular Catacombs, where we're supposed to find a PDA left by one of Doyle's colleagues. The actual Catacombs are the complete opposite of the beginning of the level, being a lot more claustrophobic. This level also adds one more environmental hazard to take a note of: nerve gas bombs. These were initially installed to keep out the hordes of mutants. It seemingly did nothing as the place is crawling with them regardless. Now, it just serves as another thing for us to look out for, as you're unable to find and equip one of the enemy's biohazard suits. This level also introduces one last mutant type, the Phantom. These variants are completely harmless, and appear only in this one specific room due to the spaghetti code that most old games are made up of. Level 16, River, also known as the worst one, by me. I named it that on account that the enemies turn into SEAL Team 6 operatives, capable of sniping you from miles away, while you're going 40 miles an hour in a boat. These inflatable Zodiacs don't provide you with much cover, so it's an extremely cumbersome experience as you slowly crawl your way upstream, picking off one enemy at a time. A brisk 45 minutes later, we make it to yet another cluster of ruins, with Crow and about a dozen other mercs waiting for us. You can, however, completely skip this encounter by doming Crow from the get-go. Unfortunately, you can't skip the entirety of Swamp's on-rail section. I have the same problems with this level as I do with River. Not long into the level, you're locked into a mounted turret on the back of a Humvee, essentially forcing you to hit 6 consecutive missiles while inside of a moving truck, as missing any given one of them seemingly results in you getting completely rinsed with bullets. And it's not like you can just learn what exact moments to shoot the missiles either, as due to the adaptive AI this game has, Valerie can randomly spin out or seemingly lose control of the vehicle. Luckily, this section is 94% shorter than last level's boat segment, which instantly bumps it up a tier in my book. We arrive at yet another base in order to find ourselves a nuke. Wait, what?
The nuke? Are you crazy?
Oh, relax. It's got a very small yield.
Oh, I guess that makes it better then. We grab one and chuck it on a forklift. So, we shoot our way into the base, go AFK for an unspecified amount of time and bring the nuke to the center of the base. Unfortunately, we also got infected with a strain of the virus, meaning we'll have to get our hands on some vaccines. We find our death cures before then having a holdout section as we protect Val from seemingly endless swarms of guards, armed to the teeth with smoke grenades and the patented Call of Duty riot shield. After it's armed, we haul ass to the exit but still get knocked out by the resulting explosion. After being knocked out, we're picked up by Krieger, which is also the first time we come face to face with him in the entire game. He gives us a pretty generic speech about human weak, what if mutates, before kicking us out of the helicopter and down onto a mutant-infested island. Luckily enough, he sends an M4 with a whole 10 rounds after us. You'd think this would be an extremely challenging level due to the premise alone, but no, not really. I used the M4 on the one mutant I come across, before then jumping down and hauling ass to a downed chopper, where I then used a mounted gun to take out anything that moves in front of me. This level is also home to this legendary line of dialogue.
Doyle, my armor's turning green.
Volcano is the final level of the game, and it's quite fitting as this level is the pinnacle of chaos. The entire level is a ginormous minefield, where you'll have to take on literal armies of mercs and fat boys, along with a heap of lava pools which do kill you instantly. I found out the hard way. After making it to Krieger's facility and going through the hallway of death, we face off with Krieger again, who's looking a lot more Resident Evil-y now. After taking him out with just a single clip of the auto shotty, it's revealed that Doyle double-crossed us for money. He probably shouldn't have told us, however, as he's only a few minutes away from us. We make it to the center of the arena and deal with the last few mutants, who are quite upset because we essentially killed their only parental figure a few minutes ago. We also deal with the last of Doyle's goons before then facing off with him. He goes down like a sack of potatoes after only a single shot. So much for that boss, I guess. He tells us that they sent him, alluding to a much more powerful and sinister force behind the whole experiment. It however seems that Jack went to the Rico Rodriguez school of shoot first, ask questions never, as he just straight up blows a hole through his head, before grabbing another dose of the vaccine, curing Val and driving off into the sunset on Krieger's yacht. And there you have it, an entirely too long summary of Far Cry's story. What was I doing again? Oh right, Retrospective. Ultimately, the story on Far Cry serves as a functional framework that supports the game's groundbreaking gameplay and technical achievements. It may not be the most compelling narrative ever told in a video game, but it effectively ties together the various elements that make the game a classic. It provides enough context and emotional engagement to make the player care about the outcome, turning each mission into more than just a sequence of objectives but a chapter in a larger, unfolding drama. The story and narrative in Far Cry may not be its strongest attribute, but they are integral to the overall experience, serving as the glue that binds the game's many revolutionary elements. They offer enough complexity and emotional stakes to elevate the game above a simple shooter, making it a memorable experience that resonates long after the credits roll. One of the most commonly cited criticisms of Far Cry is the significant shift of enemy types and tone in the latter portions of the game. The introduction of mutated creatures was a divisive move that broke the game's initial semblance of realism. While some players appreciated the added variety and challenge, others felt that this shift was jarring and inconsistent with the tone set by earlier levels. This change in enemies led to a transformation in gameplay mechanics as well, requiring different tactics and strategies that some players felt were incongruent with the game's initial design ethos. While the story serves its purpose of guiding the player through the game world, it is often criticized for its lack of depth and complexity. Some players feel that the narrative elements, including character development and plot twists, are somewhat shallow and don't measure up to the game's groundbreaking mechanics and visuals. While not a fatal flaw, it's an area where Far Cry has been seen lacking as compared to other iconic titles in the genre. The game's cutting-edge graphics and AI, while revolutionary, came with high system requirements for its time. This aspect limited the game's accessibility to players without high-end hardware, potentially narrowing its immediate audience. Although it served as a benchmark for what PCs could achieve, it also acted as a gatekeeper, restricted access to those who could meet its technical demands. While the AI in Far Cry was groundbreaking, it was not without its flaws. There were occasional inconsistencies in enemy behavior, where foes would sometimes get stuck in the environment, fail to respond logically to player actions, or just straight up shoot at you through walls with pinpoint precision. While these moments were relatively rare, they could momentarily disrupt the immersion that the game worked so hard to build. For all its advancements, Far Cry had some interface and usability issues that garnered criticism. The save system was less forgiving compared to other titles, and some players found the inventory management to be cumbersome. While these are minor quibbles, they did contribute to moments of player frustration. While Far Cry was groundbreaking in many aspects, it was not without its flaws and shortcomings. These criticisms, however, are often seen in the context of the game's pioneering achievements. They offer areas for constructive discussion but do not significantly detract from the game's overall impact and legacy. Far Cry was not merely a game. It was a seminal event in the evolution of video games, particularly within the first-person shooter genre. Released in 2004, it shattered established norms and expectations, offering players a blend of groundbreaking visuals, intelligent AI, and open-world exploration that was unprecedented at the time. While other games have since built upon these foundations, the innovations introduced by Far Cry remain a significant milestone in gaming history. The game's technical achievements cannot be overstated. From its revolutionary use of the CryEngine to its jaw-dropping graphics and meticulous attention to detail, Far Cry pushed the boundaries of what was possible with existing hardware. Its visual and audio design set new industry standards, influencing not just its immediate successors but also shaping the broader landscape of video games for years to come. Beyond its technical prowess, Far Cry was a pioneer in gameplay mechanics and design. Its open-world exploration, combined with a sophisticated AI system, elevated the gameplay experience to new heights. The game managed to integrate these advanced features into a cohesive and engaging experience, creating a balanced gameplay loop that rewarded strategy, skill, and adaptability. While the game was groundbreaking, it was not without its flaws. From the divisive shift in enemy types in the later stages to its demanding hardware requirements at the time, Far Cry had elements that garnered mixed opinions. However, these shortcomings are often seen as minor when placed against the backdrop of the game's pioneering contributions to the industry. Nearly 2 decades after its release, the legacy of Far Cry remains robust. Its influence can be seen in countless titles across various genres, as developers took inspiration from its open-world design, AI mechanics, and visual prowess. The game also spawned a franchise that has seen multiple sequels and spin-offs, each building upon the original's foundations while exploring new themes, settings, stories, and mechanics. I'll also be covering most of these throughout the remainder of the year. In summary, Far Cry stands as a timeless classic that retains its relevance even in a market saturated with open-world experiences and technically impressive titles. While it may show its age in certain aspects, its core gameplay mechanics and pioneering innovations continue to resonate with players and developers alike. It serves as a testament to what can be achieved when technical excellence meets innovative design, making it a landmark title that has rightfully earned its place in the annals of gaming history. And there we have it. An in-depth review that spans the many facets that make Far Cry a groundbreaking and enduring title. Whether you're a veteran who wishes to reminisce about this classic or a newcomer curious about its significance, Far Cry, in my humble opinion, remains a must-play title that offers valuable insights into the history and evolution of video games. 9 fat boys out of 10. Hey, that was a long video, huh? Thanks for watching till the end of it. If you enjoyed, leave a like, a comment, and subscribe, as I have 257 more videos to make between now and the inevitable heat of the universe. Follow me on Twitter, Twitch, and join the Discord. I've been Zedivus, and I'm off to Fortune City. Again.